Dearest colleagues, welcome to the Vision Straight Masterclass series. Today, as you can see, I'm one of the few people in the eye care industry that actually has the privilege of being able to interview this great legend, trailblazer, icon in the eye care industry. If there's ever someone that you had to connect with immediate effect, it has to be my good old friend, Mr. Tarrence Lackran. How are you, sir?
Oh, Obi, I'm doing very well. That's quite an introduction. You say legend. I'm turning 40 soon. It makes me feel old when you say legend.
I'll tell you why I use that term or those terms when it comes to you. Firstly, it's your passion,
Mm,
not your passion for the things that you do, but for people. Man,
yeah.
you love people. You
Yes.
love
Yes.
people. When people are around you, you look at their faces and you can see that these people are full of life. So
Wow.
there's something tangible that your aura has, where people around you or that are connected with you just want to gravitate towards. So
Wow.
it's not even about your work or the numerous of things that you keep doing. It's literally when people are around you, from what I've seen over the years, they are not the same.
No, oh,
And it's just
wow.
how you
Wow.
are, man. So for me, I've always admired that. I admired that from years ago when we connected virtually. I was like, you know what? There's just something different. And secondly, remember I said that there's a few things. Secondly, you you don't make excuses of who you are.
Yes.
So
Yes.
you
Yes.
bring you to the table.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All of you.
I am very, very unapologetic with who I am.
So that's number two of what I love the most about you is that
Oh,
we
wow.
get to see you. And then number three, excellence. So you don't
Mm.
compromise. Even in the smallest of details, you don't compromise. From what I've seen at a distance, you pay attention to the small details and you do that very well consistently over time. And that sort of like is how I've seen how you navigate around excellence. So for me, those are the three things that have stood out the most just watching you at a distance. And I'm like, wow, okay. And I'm constantly taking notes. I'm
Oh
constantly
man.
taking notes, man.
Well, listen, I appreciate those flowers you're giving me, and same for you. It's hard to believe that you and I have never physically been in a room together yet. I'm saying yet because I know it's going to happen soon. But honestly, Obi, your energy from afar is very, very powerful. So just thank you for everything you're doing. You are worldwide. Your effect goes from beyond the continent of Africa to our continent here in North America and beyond. So I'm honored to be here. I am just so grateful that we connected and that you asked me to be on this talk. And I'm looking forward to giving gems, but I'm looking forward to also receiving gems from you at the same time. So thank you.
Nah, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Terence. This is basically our masterclass series that we run with various eye care leaders from all over the globe. And this is season 2. And there's no way we could have a masterclass series without bringing the master himself. And 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 I think with you, the interesting thing about you is that I even struggled to come up with a topic name because of the level of diversity that you come across like with. So for me, I'm still yet to come up with a title for this talk simply
Wow.
because of how many aspects there are of you.
Wow.
And I believe that we're going to get to unpack that in this episode, that thousands of people from all over the globe are going to connect with this episode and be marveled by all the things that they'll be learning from you. But before we get into it, everyone, thank you very much for connecting with us on this Vision Straight Masterclass series. If you're not yet subscribed to the YouTube channel or connected with us on the different social media platforms, please do so right now. Terrence, for people that would shockingly not know who you are. Please be so kind just to give a short introduction of who Terrence is and immediately go right into it because your title there says that founder of Icons Agency. So if you don't mind just giving us a introduction of who you are and what Icons Agency is all about.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I found this beautiful industry 8 years ago. I had to correct that. I did another talk with Dr. Glover. I said 7 years, but it's actually been 8 years now that I
Wow.
found this beautiful industry. Prior to that, I was in pharmaceuticals. This has been a much better fit. I've been 10 years pharma, 8 years now in the eye care
Wow.
industry. I started as a show director for Vision Expo, the largest trade and conference shows in North America. East is in New York and West is in Las Vegas. I was there for about 6 years. In 2021, I left Vision Expo and I went on to work for Luxury Optical Holdings or New Look Vision. They're one of the top luxury eyewear retail and wholesale groups in North America. I think they have close to, I think now 700 locations. So I
Sure.
joined their team as a vice president of community relations and diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I spent about a year and a half there until I started Icons. Icons agency is my baby. I mean, and we'll talk a lot more about that later, I'm sure. But
Yeah,
the
yeah.
Icons agency, we're a multifaceted agency. We specialize in business development with brands, experiential marketing, leading for events, activations, as well as consumer responses. And lastly, we focus on inclusion and diversity in the luxury markets. So multifaceted. I've always been kind of like a Swiss Army knife, kind of speak. So a walking Swiss Army knife. So this again is just the agency. It just has its hands in multiple different parts of the industry as well. So that's a little bit of my career, but about me, I always tell people, and I don't know how this translates in every continent. My line is, I'm a son of two immigrants and a child of the ghetto. And that's and that's where I grew up in. I know it doesn't define me, but that's who I was, and that's who I still am, and those are my roots. And I think that's what brings, that personality aspect and my drive to everything that I do because that's where I started.
Wow. Let me ask you this. When people think of Terrence, what is it
Mhm.
that were you ever intentional about what you want people to think about when they think about your name? Or when they think of all the different aspects that are related to the kind of work that you add value in, have you ever thought about why would your name then come to their minds? So I guess it's a two-folded question if you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, absolutely. And yes, the answer is yes. I have been very intentional with everything that I put forward. Very, very intentional. So I would say about 2017, about that year, 2018 maybe, um, is when I decided I was going to launch the Icons agency.
Okay.
So from there, everything I did in this industry was very intentional to lead to what I was going to launch in 2023, which was going to be the Icons agency. And I want to just clarify one part. I'm not saying that I was disingenuous with my relationships. I'm not saying that I was not working 110% for my employers because I gave them that plus more, right? Which benefited them. But I always knew that what I was going to do was going to lead to where I'm at right now. I call myself a master connector. You ever heard, that movie, The Avengers, Obi?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you have these Avengers, they all have these superpowers, right? That lead to this amazing group. So for me, I was a student and still am a student of the profession in the industry. So for me, it's I learn people's superpowers. I store them in my brain. My memory is like insane, right? And then I learn somebody else's superpowers, and then I like, oh, okay, well, you could use this. Let me grab Obi because he can fulfill that. Because his superpower is this, and let me just connect you guys together to go ahead and fix this problem that you have. there as well. So I became like an optical yellow pages almost. People always called me, hey, can you connect me with somebody that can help me with this? Do you know something that can solution there as well? So again, just always was and still am a student of this industry and being able to affect that with other people.
When you, I love that. Now, on that same topic or that same note that you made, as you were going about doing that, what were you picking up along the way where it developed then into some form of matrix that you follow in relation to exactly that process? And then second part of it, how do you then harness that? For someone
Mm-hmm.
that is listening and is thinking to themselves, wow, I can relate to that, but they have not reached the level at which they are putting it into practice. What was
Yeah.
your process like, or how did you harness that process or aspect of what you just mentioned?
Yeah. I think we can harness that or we can make money off of it, right? And I think we all we all want to make money, right? We all kind of think, well, how can I make money off of this process or these learnings or these behaviors that I have there as
Yeah.
well, all right? So for me, as I gathered things, I just continue to filter, right? So it's like, okay, I learned this aspect. Let me go ahead and filter this into this part of my brain, whether that might be connections, or I've learned this aspect, let me go ahead and filter this my brain, which could be brand activations or experiential parts of it as well. So that way, when I needed to utilize, when I needed to go ahead and start something, whether it be an agency or to assist clients, or even before I came into this entrepreneur role, I was always being able to categorize different parts of what I've picked up and utilizing it when I'm there. So, for example, let's say when I joined New Look Vision Group, right, going from the trade show world now to the country's largest luxury optical retail group. So I learned customer behaviors through Vision
Yeah.
Expo because of my dealings with buyers all the time, studying how they buy, when they buy, what they're looking for. And that changes. The buyer in Miami buys very different from the buyer in New York, who buys very different from the buyer in Texas. Then you go outside of the continent, and then you even have more different behaviors. So I was able to store what these different behaviors were, right, of buyers, right? And then I got to know vendors and how are they also preparing themselves for the buying season? What are they doing right? What needs tweaking? What they've proved to be unsuccessful? What the best vendors are doing? And what the vendors that haven't been able to get off the ground are doing. So again, storing all that. So that when I got to New Look Vision Group, to this luxury group, I was a perfect fit because for years I have been studying behaviors of buyers. And for years I've been studying behaviors of vendors. So when it came there, it was just perfect at that point.
Wow. Wow. I love that. You mentioned in your intro the key aspect of diversity. So as you then navigating this process and building a name for yourself, the eye care industry globally has somehow taken its time to be receptive to people that look like you and I,
Absolutely.
especially when they need to part ways with their money to give to us. And
Yes.
so
Yes.
that you can then come and deliver on work that no one else can deliver on except you and I. You get what I'm trying to say?
That's
So
correct.
how was there any form of apprehension that you experienced or opposition or sort of like pushback as you are growing within the industry, trying to add value? You know you're the best person suited for this. No one can deliver it the way you can deliver it. But how did you deal with any form of pushback that you experienced in the industry at that time or throughout those processes?
Yes, I have experienced apprehension. I am experiencing apprehension, and I probably will continue to experience apprehension there, right? Um, I think at one point, when I joined this industry, I came from pharma, dealing on the medical side, and then coming in this industry and dealing with optometrists, what 3% of optometrists identify as being Black in the US, 1.8 of practicing optometrists. So when I first came in, for me, I felt like I had to fit in, right? So I'm like, okay, for me to be accepted, I need to now be as close as I can to people in the room, behavior wise, be as close as I can behavior wise to the people in the room, assimilate there as well, right? But it's exhausting. It's exhausting.
True.
It's exhausting.
Absolutely, man.
It is exhausting. I mean, it is more exhausting than going to the gym. I mean, it is exhausting not being yourself and feeling like you need to assimilate into a room. So I read this book called Step Up and Stand Out. Um, Step Up and Stand Out. And basically what it said was, okay, you can assimilate in a room and you can blend in with the people in a room. Or you can be yourself and they can never be that. You can be them, but they can
Wow.
never be you. You
Wow.
get so
Wow.
so
Wow.
I could be, Terrence Lackran, this person in the room that's always buttoned up in the room, that speaks a certain way and eats a certain way and dresses a certain way, and I'll just be the Black person in the room that fits in with everybody, right?
Yeah.
Or I can be this larger than life thing that comes in, you know, and comes in everywhere. I was everywhere. I was in every room, fashion, medical, you name it. I was in every room. And it was like, oh, did you see Terrence? You know, did you
I
meet
like
Terrence? He was the guy, because I was so different and I was myself and I was genuine and people out there. Now, it's not for everybody. I'm not everybody's cup of tea. But listen, I like coffee anyway. So, I don't need to be everybody's cup of tea. But for me, it's, always continuing to be myself. And I think what happens, Ovi, is there are going to be people that are not for it. And then the expression that I've heard a lot when I started being myself was, oh, you're such a breath of fresh air.
yeah.
Because it's such a breath of fresh air because some people are like, wow, we've been waiting for something like this in this industry. We've been
Yeah.
waiting for something different. We get it. We get it. So I think it comes down to is you can't focus on the people that don't are not for you, but go deep, go heavy with the people that are for you right now. I mean, when I launched my agency, I didn't reach. I've only to this day um, actively pursued one client. Every client that I've worked with so far and working with has pursued me.
Wow.
Um, so because they're like, oh yeah, he's different. We need to progress. We need something different, and we've been waiting to work with something and someone like this. So be yourself.
So wow. Wow, that's incredible. I have to ask this. At the end of the day, this is a masterclass series. So the conversation tends to go a different route than what we would initially plan.
Sure.
You're very confident, very, very confident and self-aware
Mhm.
of who you are, what you bring to the table, and so forth. But what are the insecurities though? Because sometimes when we have built these brands that people in other countries know us and gravitate towards us, we tend to somehow have this sense of, okay, I always have to function this way, even though that's who I am. I'm not
Sure.
doing anything that is outside of who I am. But if for some strange reason things don't work out, we hold ourselves to a different level of standard or
Yes.
accountability than what anyone else would put on ourselves as entrepreneurs within this eyecare space. So for me,
Absolutely.
and I would want to know from you in terms of what were some of the insecurities, if any, and how do you then navigate around those? Because man, you have drawn so many people towards you. So it means that there are people waiting on the other side of your vision coming to pass. So that comes with pressure. That comes
Yes.
with immense pressure. So how do you deal with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there was a lot on my shoulders to launch this agency, right? And gotten support from so many people. I'm so grateful. I've gotten support from, just so many people, but I didn't want to let them down. Here I was going to launch. I was leaving a very successful position, as a executive at a very large company in this industry, and I was leaving it all. I was leaving it not because I didn't like it. I wasn't leaving it because not because they didn't like me. I was leaving it to pursue something that I know is mine. So of course it's just like, okay, I got to make this work, and there's so many people looking at me, and like, oh, listen, if I don't make this work, it may discourage them from their business as well as they pursue their business as well, because they're
Yeah,
like, wow, you have the connections, you have the relationships, you have the experience. So if you can't make this work, what might this say for myself there? So with a number of things that help me overcome it. I think one thing for me is, and I want to be very how this comes out. Um, I became very selfish. I
wow.
became very I became very selfish, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I became
I
very
got you.
selfish in a good way. For me, I am the most important. Me and my business right now in this space are the most important things for me and priorities for me. Right? I have very good friends in this industry. I have very good supporters in this industry. Here's an interesting thing now, Obi. I am now pitching to these people who I've known for a very long time. Right? So people who have shared with me their goals, people who have shared with me their woes at the same time. So I could say, okay, let me just go in there. I want to make this work for them, and the budget work for them, and this work for them, and make sure it's in line with their goals, and making sure it looks good for them. And yes, that is absolutely a objective for me. But
Sure.
at the end of the day, I am looking first at me and
Wow.
first at this agency, right? And what is best for me in this agency at that. And unfortunately, sometimes it becomes okay, this could be a fit for both of us, but right now we are just not aligned. So being willing to just walk away. Now, I've had to walk away from some pretty big names in this industry, right? Um, and sometimes it can be hard. It can be hard. It can be hard. It can be really hard to say no to something because you think, oh, well, if I can get in the door, it can lead to this. But I always feel like if you get into the door compromising, you will always have to compromise in that connection. So
Wow.
start off first, not compromising. And eventually, if it's right for you, if it is right for both of you, that person or that organization will come back around.
Wow. I love that. I love that. And I think I experienced something similar because there was a time where I was launching my consulting firm and knowing so many people in the industry locally here in South Africa. And I almost felt like I always had to sort of like undervalue what value I
Yes.
bring to the table because
Yes.
it's as if I came as a beggar
Yes.
and
Yes.
it would be like,
Yes.
uh,
Mm.
look, yeah, let's, you're negotiating your price down, you're
Mhm.
negotiating certain things down. And
Yes.
one day I stepped out of my comfort zone and I went to the UK and I was going to go pitch at a business that was already doing the kind of work I'm trying to do in South Africa for practices locally here. And they were willing to pay for that. So after I pitched, they asked me, so how much will it cost us for all of this? Here I am in my back of my mind thinking, if I could just do my stuff for free in this type of business, it will launch me globally. And then they said to me, how much are you guys going to, how much is your team going to charge us for this? Then I gave them the price. Then we delivered on the work. They came back to us and they said, you know what? In the 40 years that we have been in this space, no external company has come in the manner in which you came. You were
Wow.
super prepared, super researched, and you actually got a better understanding of what our business needed, where we were versus where we were supposed to be. And so I realized that from that moment, never ever would I ever put myself in a situation where I don't value myself enough or my team because we're bringing something unique that the industry needs. And like you said earlier on, no one can bring it the way you do. No one
No
can
one.
deliver it the way you do. And I realized that by me changing that approach, the respect changed. Even from
Yes.
people that didn't think that they will do business with me, all of a sudden, how they viewed or perceived what we brought to the table, that changed. So then my next question that I have for you then is, how have you dealt with broken relationships that you had formed over the years as a
Uh,
result of then being super focused on what you need to do? Have you ever had people let you down that you are close with in the industry, that in your process of building what you're supposed to be building, you realize that those people are not supposed to go with you to the next level? You can't
yeah.
take them to the next level because unfortunately no one trains us on those type of things. You learn it on the job. So how was your experience around those type of stuff?
Yes, that's a really, really good question because I'm actually going through something like that right now.
Oh man.
Um, so it's actually a really good question, and I would love to tell you how the outcome goes. I can tell you how I feel going through
Yeah,
it right
yeah,
now. Personally going through it right now, you feel. I mean, listen. At the end of the day, I can sit up here confident. I can sit up here strong, but I think very similar to you, Obi. We lead with loyalty, right? We lead with respect, and we lead with our hearts at the same time, right?
yeah,
So when you show loyalty and you show respect to someone or some organization for many years, you assume that you are going to get that back as well, no matter what your position is. Now, you have to think about I was a show director, so I had an immense amount of resources available to me to shine a light on a lot of people in the industry,
yeah,
and to um, give them opportunities in certain respects. And I don't want to say I would just give opportunities. They gave that we it was mutual, right? They
mutual
did
for sure,
things,
for
yeah,
sure.
they did things for me. They helped me with the show. They helped me with content as well, and in exchange, it was a mutual consent there. And then you get to a certain, you're out of this position sometimes where you had this authority, you had this much, because I want to say you were able to serve them in a way that was beneficial for them. And
Yeah,
then now here you are in a position where like, okay, well, yeah, we were always loyal to one another. So I'm expecting the same loyalty, as I'm going through now a transition in my career, and you don't get it,
jeez.
and I'm going to tell you, it hurts. It
Flipping
hurts.
hard. It's
It
flipping
hurts. Yeah,
painful.
absolutely, absolutely. And I would, I would not be human, I think, if I didn't, say that. It hurts. It goes through betrayal. Sometimes you think about it at night. You think about all you've gone through with someone or with an organization, um, and you're like, wow, how did we get here? You
Wow.
start going back and thinking, did I misjudge certain things or certain actions or certain words? Did I misjudge that? Um, and you just realize that in this industry, and I think I would say in any industry, not everyone has the same genuine motives that you have.
Sure.
Um, but I can sit there every night and think about it, lose sleep, and not be myself in the morning for the next person. Or what I can do now is go back to the people who I have genuine relationships, think about who does still support me, and keep it moving at that. Now, will it always sting? Yeah, yeah, for sure. And every time you see this person or people, will it sting? Absolutely. But you don't let it stop you. You don't let it hinder your tracks there. You know. And I'm actually like, wow. I mean, I can't lose sleep over this. I can't lose sleep. you know.
Wow, wow, wow. Man, I pray that uh, everything works out throughout
Thank
this
you.
process. Uh, Entrepreneurship it's flipping not easy.
No, no,
It's not easy,
no.
especially when we come from corporate, having
Yes.
a certain job that pays you well, that has taken
Yes.
care of you for a very long time, and then
Yes.
the risk of, okay, but my vision is there. I
For
need to go
sure.
there and start there. The uncertainty that comes with that,
Yes.
it's so
Yes.
challenging. Uh, how do you stay relevant though? Because
Mhm.
like you're saying earlier on now, like literally a moment ago, there was always a safe zone
Mhm.
with the organizations that you would always be part of.
Right.
Now you have to create the safe zones, the safety net, the everything. You have to birth it
Right.
from Icon's agency.
That's right.
So how do you stay relevant? At the same time, you have to build those relationships. You still have to collaborate. You still have to network. You still have to leverage off those relationships, because we can't be defined by one or two bad scenarios and let that sort of like define everything else and then push everyone away and be like, I'm all by myself. So how do you navigate around all of that while still staying relevant and still growing into a better version or a different version of you, so that you can continue to add value to organizations, individuals, in a manner in which no one else can?
Yeah. I would say show up, continue showing up.
I love that. I love that.
That's a big thing for me. I'm kind of going backwards. 8 years ago, when I was starting, my studies in this industry as an industry member, and how I learned this industry, how people learned who I was and my name was I showed up everywhere,
I
right?
love that.
So if there was a conference, I was there. If there was a trade show, I was there. If there was an opening of a retail or a doctor's office, I showed up there as well. The good thing about it is I live near New York City, so it's a hub of a lot going on in this
Yeah.
industry. Allows me to be places. But you know what's actually now 8 years into this now space Obi, which is interesting, is showing up places where nobody else is actually there. The
Come on.
industry, the industry is they follow me and they look at me, and I'm bringing this industry into places that this industry has never been.
Come on.
Around people that has never been. I mean, going to Art Basel, going to runway fashion shows. Being with people that are public figures and they're knowing me for what I do, icons as well.
Wow.
So for me, it's being now showing up places, and the industry looks like, wow, thank you for introducing us to this space, or thank you for introducing us to these personalities. There's an there's a photographer from Kenya. Um, and you've probably seen her work. I posted quite a bit over her name is Sandiwe. Um,
Yes.
and she is absolutely amazing. I met her 2021 in Miami. It was her first time ever showing her work. And I was just like floored when I saw it. And when you see her work, it's amazing. So she does photography, she makes her own clothes, and then she makes eyewear out of items in Kenyan culture.
Yeah.
And then she
Yeah.
makes the eyewear and photographs it, and the photos are like boom, wow. So I met her, and she was showing her eyewear, her photos for the first time, and I just started documenting our experience together, our interactions. We met up again in New York, we met up again in Miami, we're meeting up again in a few weeks in Paris, um, and you wouldn't believe how many vendors are like, "Can you introduce us? We would love to do a collaboration with
Wow.
this photographer. We would love to be able to do business with the photographer." So it's now being able to push the industry into a space that we have not been, and into
Wow.
spaces that the industry has not either reached out to those spaces or not successfully landed a spot there. So it's being a trailblazer at this point.
Wow, man. That's, hey, you're dropping some serious gems here. And competition,
Mhm.
because I don't know what happens to the industry, and you alluded to this earlier on. It's as if the same group of people or businesses that were, the doors were very open when you come representing an organization.
Right.
The door sometimes does not open the same way when
Mhm.
you come by yourself.
Mhm.
On the flip side of things, you being on your own, you end up being able to go to places like you've just alluded to that you weren't being able to do so previously. So, in the midst of all eyes on you, you constantly elevating yourself. What's your view right now of where the industry is at in terms of working together, embracing competition, embracing diversity, embracing change, um, but still growing and wanting to make sure that we're top of the food chain?
Yeah,
Um, we're not running NGOs here at the end of the day. We're
that's
running
right.
businesses.
That's right.
We're building legacy projects here that generations to come are going to be benefiting from the work that we're putting in here today. So,
Yeah.
what's your view regarding where the industry is at right now when it comes to collaboration, working together, versus where we're going, and your views regarding young people,
Mm,
the next
mm,
generation of IK
mm.
leaders? Because what's happening, like what's your viewpoint, and I'll share what I'm seeing in Africa, but I'd like to hear what you are experiencing at the current moment.
Yeah, I'm gonna actually answer that last part of the question first, if you don't mind,
Okay, perfect.
about young people. Um, I am scared in a great way of the young people in the industry. I
Elaborate.
think young people in general, I think I'm scared in a great way. And I mean that because I'm looking at them, what they're putting out, how they're handling themselves in these spaces, how, years ago we looked at eye care and optometrists just did one thing, right? And then now you look at some of these younger optometrists coming into the industry, and they're optometrists, they're inventors, they're social media influencers, right? They're media personalities like you know, they're going and they're pushing this industry to a whole different avenue as well. They're not satisfied anymore with just being optometrists and just being in patient care. Now they love
Okay.
it and they want to be in patient care, of course, but they're so doing so much. And I'm just so impressed with them. I have an assistant that I work with, a young gentleman. He was an optician in the industry and he helps me out with icons. And he's 25.
Wow.
Um, and I keep a Gen Z around me. I look at him talking about certain things, and he's like, "Oh, why don't you try this?" And I'm like, "I have never heard of that." And he starts telling me. I mean, he introduced me to the metaverse. He introduced me to what can happen in this industry, in the metaverse, in the optical world, the ideas he has there as well. And he will do greater things that I have done and will do in this space because of where he's
Love,
starting out right now.
love
So
that.
yeah, I am scared in a very good way for what the
Wow.
young people in this industry are doing. But then I think about what the industry is looking like when I think about those who've been in here a little while, and I'm not talking about a long time, but just the we look at the industry as a whole. I think with you mentioned diversity, you mentioned innovation earlier. How are things looking there? Um, I think we have made some strides. Uh, I think about when just even a few years ago, when we would go to conferences, there were not many speakers of color, key opinion leaders there. Up until last year, I don't think we had any people of color or on speaker bureaus or different conference advisory boards, and we're seeing a little bit more of that as well. I just got the phone with a good friend of mine, Elsie Atkins. He's a optician in Atlanta, and he
Yeah.
said he's going to go to Vegas because he's giving his first lecture on national
Wow.
stage. So it's nice to see that.
Wow.
But I think that we're seeing strides. I think we should be much further than where we are. And I look at that, or we kind of look at some of our cousins industries, I like to call them. So you look at, for example, I come from the fashion side of this industry. So of course I look at apparel, I look at footwear, I look at jewelry and
Yeah,
what they've been doing for a number of years there. I mean, the simple fact that we have, let's see, we have Pharrell Williams, creative director of Louis Vuitton right now, right? We have people of color in positions of leadership, I mean, and not just like middle leadership, but in the C suites of leadership roles,
yeah, yeah.
in different industries. And some of them have been there for a while now. Um, it just baffles me when I think about the C-suite leadership in this industry. I can't think of hardly any person that's a CEO in this industry that we can say, okay, that is a black CEO of a large company in this industry. There's a few in the C-suites. Shout out to Dr. Millicent Knight, right, and
Yeah,
EssilorLuxottica. Shout
yeah,
out to the Sherry Ann James there, who's CMO at EssilorLuxottica as well, and many others. But they're very few. So we've had kind of this awakening in 2020, and we saw some optometrists being hired, some of them filling the middle management seats. But now it's like, wow, we see still nothing. And then when it comes down to the direct top in this industry, and there's tons of qualified candidates out there. There are
absolutely,
tons of
absolutely.
qualified candidates out there. So if I was the executive team, I would be looking at people like you, people like Dr. Glover, people like Dr. Ramsey. We can go on, Dr. Richardson, and saying, okay, well, that can be the future of this company. Let's take them now and develop them into the leadership role.
Terrence, you just made me aware of something big. Man, our businesses have to succeed. The stakes are too high, man.
We
Because
have to.
if it the stakes are too high because the very same companies, the large corporates in our industry, very soon they will have no choice but to call on Icon's agency,
Have to.
Vision Straight, Black
That's right.
Eyecare Perspective, and so forth, and many others that are doing incredible work
That's right.
because they've reached a plateau and they can't go forward. And as a result of them working with agencies like yours
Right.
and many others that are existing, the narrative around what we bring to the table in changing things from a sales point of view, marketing point of view, leadership point of view, business point of view, strategy point of view, they will have gotten that from people that are not the same as them. And as a
That's right.
result, it will become a norm over time. Because even if I look at South Africa, flip, man, there isn't a person of color in the C-suites.
Come on. I mean, come on. Come on. I mean, it's not like we're hiding. It's
No,
not like, I mean, listen, I mean, I look at some of your credentials and people in this industry, and you guys can run circles around some of these people and leadership. And I know I think, we've been taught from childhood, right, that we need to work twice as hard to get half as much, right?
yeah,
So I think about some of these people in leadership. I think about, Dr. Knight, Dr. Millicent Knight, right? I think
yeah,
about,
yeah,
and I was like, if she got this far, just imagine how hard she is working to even
yeah,
get that far.
yeah.
She can run circles around these CEOs. you know, she can run circles. If she can get that far working and being a woman at the same time, she can
Yeah,
run
yeah.
circles around these CEOs if she was truly put to her potential, and that's not just for her, it's for many people,
Wow.
within this industry. I think about even like there was an article that said, "Did black men save luxury fashion during the pandemic?" This is no joke. This is a Business of Fashion article that said,
Wow.
"Did black men save luxury fashion during the
Wow.
pandemic?" Right?
Wow.
And it was just saying just the power of the black dollars and luxury. So if I'm working with these vendors, why isn't there a black person on the C-suite that's talking about, okay, this is how you market to this consumer. This is how you design for this consumer at the same time. Um,
Wow.
it baffles me. So I think, yes, we've made some strides, but it's not fast enough for me.
Wow. I love your company, man. Your website is clean, fresh.
Thank
For a
you.
person that's sitting outside of the United States of America and they love your perspective, they're sitting perhaps in Europe. At what stage are you going to be able to then branch out of America and start doing work with global companies as well? Where, like, because your attention to detail is insane.
Thank you.
And one thing about you is that you don't start anything that you don't finish. So the whole process of what you do, you make sure that everything runs the way it's supposed to run. So
Yes.
when a person is thinking of Icons Agency, they're on your website, they're thinking like, you know what, I need to connect with Terrence.
Mhm.
What is that process? What is that process like of connecting with you? And just if you don't mind, for the listener who perhaps joined us after you did your intro, the key areas of focus, if you don't mind just unpacking that so
Right.
that people are very clear on what is it that they need to reach you for.
Yes. Yeah. So you said, when can people outside of the US start reaching out to work with icons? I would say that
Yeah,
happened March 1st, 2023. People can start
nice,
reaching out.
nice,
And actually,
nice.
it's interesting, Obi, very few of my clients are in the US. So I just want to shout out to Anna Corinne Carlson, who I work with out of Sweden,
Yeah,
Eyewear out of Sweden, Vintage Frames out of Montreal, who I'm working with, New Look Vision Group out of Montreal, Vision Opticals out of Nigeria, who I'm working with. So far, I think I may have like one client, Open Rooms out of the UK, who I'm working with. So I believe I only have, the Italian Trade Commission out of Italy, who I'm working with as well. So yeah, global brands definitely holler at me.
wow, I love it.
We're
I
ready.
love it.
We're ready. How the process goes, I fit into three different components. So there's business development. So I'm working with brands who want to develop, mostly on the wholesale side, their business within the industry. U.S. Outside of the U.S. That comes into marketing, that comes to PR, that comes to sales on that side. I also work with different brands and organizations on experiential marketing. That could
Okay.
be events, that can be conferences, that can be in store or out of store brand activations as well. And then it comes to inclusion and diversity. So with that bucket, um, consumers are holding brands accountable more and more to make
Yeah,
sure that
absolutely.
their faces and their voices are being heard. So I work with brands to make sure that things come across genuine, people are being heard, people are being seen, and that it doesn't come across disingenuous at the same time. So if that is you and that's your interest, my website is iconsagency.com. I'm on Instagram at iconsagency. And then my personal Instagram is the optical poet.
Wow. Terrence, thank you so much. This was quick, jam-packed, and you literally every point you were literally like hitting hard. Thank you so much, man. As a parting note, how do you define leadership?
Mm,
With
yeah,
everything that you've
yeah.
said, what's your definition of leadership, and what advice would you then, because you see the young people, they're very creative, but they are leader they don't have people
That's right.
that are reporting to them. So you are fortunate enough to have been in a situation where you have had very senior roles, have had to work with multiple clients, but at the same time report to people above you. Then you
Yes.
navigate to being on your own and take all those lessons and more that you learned and apply it in your own business. But what I found with young people, as great as they are, as talented, as amazing as they are, not everyone is going to be a bright person that's going to like step out and change the industry, right? Some of them, in order to get to that process, they're going to still have to go through structure. A lot of young people they're going to encounter an industry that is not necessarily favorable for what they want to do. And they'll have to work or navigate themselves through certain structures in order to show who they are and what they bring to the table. Because not everyone is going to be a Terrence who's going to create room or space for them to be themselves. So one of those young people will find themselves working for a contact lens company, working for a pharmaceutical company, a frame company, and having to report to various bosses and all of that type of stuff. So what is leadership, taking that into consideration, and your advice then for young people in that context?
Yeah. So I would say, number one, get all the information now. Ask questions. I was green in this industry when I came in, OB. I mean, green. I didn't know anything about this industry when I came in. I came from pharmaceuticals and not, contact lenses or, pharmaceuticals that we see in our industry. I came from pain management pharmaceuticals into this industry. So I knew nothing about this industry, but I was not afraid to ask questions and listen for the answer, right? I mean, I would go to people and I would ask, I didn't know the difference between an optician, an optometrist, and an ophthalmologist when I came on. I didn't know. I mean, I didn't know. I would go to people and say, so explain to me again, doctor, what makes you different from an ophthalmologist, right? And what makes you different from an optician? But it sounded foolish, and here I am. That person at that point, excuse me, I had a senior role, but I needed to learn the industry. So ask questions. If you don't understand something, ask it. Never be afraid to ask those questions as well, and store that information. At the same time, never be afraid to share. I'm very, very interested into other industries that I take best practices from. So I go to all of the eye care shows, but I also go to like the fashion shows. I go to the sneaker shows, right? I go to the NBA shows as well. So I go to all these different events, right? And one thing that I love is when I go to different events, they're competitors all sitting on one stage together.
Wow.
And they're sharing their ideas. They know each other. They're joking around. Here it is. They're competitors sitting next to them. And they're joking around because they're friends. They're sharing their different ideas because competition is so good. Competition is so good, right? So they're sharing their ideas. So share your ideas with the person. Uplift the next generation of leaders. Uplift your peers at the same time. And be humble. And if you're saying right now that you are humble, then you're probably not. So if you said you are humble, then you need to work on humility. And if you're working on humility and you think you got it, well, you just lost it. So constantly work on that aspect of your personality because you'll be. I mean, look, you've given me more flowers than I even deserve on this podcast, and I'm taking all the men and everything. I could leave.
I'm just speaking the truth, man. I'm speaking the truth. I'm just speaking the truth. I'm not here to. One thing I don't like. I don't want to sort of like boast about you or anything like that. But I learned a long time ago. Make what I do count.
That's right.
So when I connect with people that I've never met in the industry, like you say, I always carry a notebook. I always have something where I'm writing down because different people bring different skills, knowledge, information, and so forth. And you can always learn. You always have to stay learning and teachable because one day you're going to be in a position where you are clear on what your vision is. And it will be all the things that you have learned and picked up that will help you then be clear on what your unique value proposition is. So for me, man, I'm shocked. I'm actually embarrassed that today is the first time that we actually are seeing each other in person like this, even though we have chatted in different platforms and stuff like that. Yeah. But I actually remember, I don't know if you remember, one of the first things that I ever reached out to you about was Vision Expo. I actually sent you a mail and you responded. You responded. And that was the very first. You never knew me. I was still trying to create a name for myself in the industry. but you took the time to respond
Sure.
with details. And for me, that said, you know what? Even when God elevates me to a certain level one day, never get to a point where I feel like I'm not going to take 2 minutes and give this person a response. Especially if when they reached out to me, they were very specific. You know, sometimes
Yes.
people go on
Yes.
on social media and they just say, "Hi, sir," and then they just leave it
Yeah.
at that.
Yeah.
And then you're
Yeah.
like, what must I do now? But what I loved about you that time, I reached out to you asking you about the conference, and you responded with so much detail. And the pandemic then happened, so I
I
couldn't
know. I know. I
follow
know.
up. You know, the pandemic happened,
Oh,
but for me, that taught me a lesson: be thorough.
yeah.
Be
Yeah.
thorough. Just
Yeah.
be thorough. You know. So yeah, man. That's so. These gems, these flowers I'm giving you, I'm not just giving you for the sake of giving you. I've
Appreciate it.
experienced it for myself in various aspects over the years through my engagement with you.
Wonderful. Well, the engagement's going to do nothing but get better, and
Yeah.
finally when we meet, I'm so ashamed to say I have never been to South Africa. So
Wow.
yeah, I go to West Africa, but I've never traveled down
South.
south.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I saw you were
I
in Ghana. Was it last year?
yes,
Yeah, you were
yes,
in Ghana and you had a phenomenal trip there.
phenomenal,
Ghana
phenomenal.
is amazing.
It is, it is, yes, it is. So, yeah, I'll be spending a lot more time on the continent. So I'll be making my way down south very soon.
Dr. Glover and I, we've got this platform called iAfrica Media, and very
Yes,
soon
yes.
we will have a conference. And man,
I'm
imagine
there.
I can already
I'm
see.
there.
I can already see it, man. I can already see it.
I'm there.
Terrence,
I'm there.
thank you so much for today.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. This has been an absolute blessing. Everyone, make sure to connect with Terrence. Make sure to connect with the Icons Agency. Reach out to him. What a phenomenal
Yes.
leader. What a phenomenal leader. Thank you so much for gracing us with your presence here on the Masterclass series. Everyone, stay tuned. Connect with us on YouTube. Connect with the Vision Straight across all media platforms. If you're not subscribed yet on the YouTube channel, subscribe right now. Until the next episode, stay blessed and make a difference. Make what you do count, guys.
Much love, everybody. Much love.